You can opt out.
Ooh, I just got butterflies, babe.
If you can figure out how to hack Bitcoin, you're a millionaire.
What if someone is like, Ian, Mandana, this is genius. Where can I donate to support this open source protocol?
It's not about the money. It's about making them participate.
And I think it's a really cool way to help everyone monetize their projects.
I don't know what anyone's going to build on top of that idea.
It's Mandana.
And Ian.
Welcome to Flirting with Bitcoin.
Season 3.
That's right. 3 years ago, I tricked Ian into a weekly date night.
I let you trick me so I could teach you about Bitcoin.
Well, it worked. I'm very excited for the halving.
You should be. Bitcoin's about to do what Bitcoin's about to do.
Ooh, okay then. Keon, can we start the show?
Okay.
Let's go.
Hey, Ian.
Hey, Mandana.
You leveled up this week.
To what?
You reached the next level in your Bitcoin journey.
Which is?
So you have an idea that could be the Bitcoin version of something broken in the fiat world. You left cyberspace and met with people in person to talk about how to build it. That's leveling up, baby.
You know what? You're right.
Yes, bring that energy, baby. You quit your job.
Yep.
Momentum is growing. Things are happening.
Yeah, it's exciting to meet up with people who are not only into Bitcoin, but they're also building things off of the concept of decentralization.
It's so exciting. But before we get into it, what time is it, babe?
The current time is 846-257, and we're approximately 686 blocks since our last recording.
It's time for the Satoshi Price Index. Data brought to you by pricedinbitcoin21.com. So, Ian, if I gave you $1 US, how many acres could I get on sunny Bitcoin Island?
You could get 1,474 acres, aka Satoshis, on sunny Bitcoin Island.
And what if I was grocery shopping?
Well, if you're grocery shopping, the Satoshi Price Index is up 0.46%. So it's up a little bit. Things got a little bit more expensive for you if you're living on a Bitcoin standard. But again, remember, we're up 100% over the last year.
You've been saying that a lot lately. I mean, I think you said it twice today just to me.
I don't think we talked about Bitcoin at all today.
You know, you brought it up.
That wasn't me.
Yes, because you'll say something like you'll look at your phone and you'll read a news article, and then you'll be like, it didn't go up 100% though.
I guess I'll take your word for that.
Take my word for it. You say it a lot.
Back to the grocery cart. Eggs are 4,700 Satoshis. Beef is 5,000 Satoshis. Gasoline is 3,400 Satoshis. Cheese is 2,800 Satoshis. And corn is 6,300 Satoshis.
What if I wanted to buy a new necklace made of gold and a house to go with it?
That would be an odd...
odd flex.
But if you wanted to, you could get an ounce of gold for 2.9 million Satoshis. And you can get a house for 640 million Satoshis or 6.4 Bitcoin. So houses are still less than 7 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The median house in the United States of America.
Yeah. So yesterday we were at the farmer's market and we were wearing our podcast merch, and we met someone working at the stand for the farm that we normally buy a lot of things from. And the woman there was telling me about her experience with Bitcoin, and her brother can't seem to find his 12 words.
Damn shame.
It is a shame. And there's a lot of Bitcoin on there. And so anyways, we ended up talking to her and we encouraged her to listen to the show. So please listen to the show. It just brought me to the fact that Ian had Bitcoin that he mined years ago that he doesn't know where it is.
I know exactly where it is.
Where is it?
On a computer that I don't have.
Exactly. You don't know where that computer is. Yeah.
I legitimately threw that computer away.
Yeah.
But again, I don't call that Bitcoin lost Bitcoin.
Yes. And that's what she said. And you said, but if I had known that I could buy a house with that, because I had like 6.
Yeah, I had like 6 or 7 or 10. It was like less. It was a single digit amount of Bitcoin. The irony of it all is that I threw away a house worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And when you said that, I was like, the Satoshi Price Index is like working. I kind of immediately was like, yeah, that's how much it's worth.
Today,
yeah.
When I threw it away, I think it was worth like a couple dollars, maybe $20 tops. And I just was like, whatever, it is what it is.
But it's working, babe. Good job. Good job coming up with this idea to train your brain to think in Bitcoin.
We get the data from Priced in Bitcoin, but actually I'm looking at building a different version of what they're doing to just solely produce the Satoshi price index like all the time, not just when we record the pod.
Great idea.
So you could go to satoshipriceindex.com and it would just show you what it is.
Yeah, Ian does a lot of work. He has a whole spreadsheet, guys, that he updates right before we record every episode.
That website doesn't exist yet, and I probably should buy it before we publish this episode because people just buy people's domains that they say out loud. But that's something that I'm working on, but it's taken a back burner to what I am currently working on, which is what this episode is about.
Let's give a big shout out to our biggest boosts in May from the Having Hangover episode, Hunter SF770, one of our OGs. Love you, Hunter.
Burr, 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 burr.
From American Schizophrenia. Love that episode. Thank you, Remember Jay Stark and Digital Guillotine. Shout out to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ainsley Costello. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for all the love we've been getting, all the boosts. It's just each and every one just like makes my heart tingle.
I had mentioned Ainsley like on Nostr in passing, and I guess she went and like listened to the episode.
I know, so cool.
And liked it.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked her out, go check her out. She's like an up and coming artist in the, I guess, Nostr Bitcoin space.
Yeah, definitely.
And so she's got a lot of music on Wavelake, which is basically Nostr for music. Check out Wavelake as well. It's like a different version of Fountain. And we actually published the podcast there, but we're more focused on Fountain at the moment. But yeah, she has a #1 song on Wavelake at the moment.
Congratulations, Ainsley.
Congrats.
So speaking of Nostr, you went to a Nostr event last week, and I don't know exactly what it was, but basically Derek Ross posted it, and I responded and I said that I was going to make you go. Because, of course, Ian has this idea to build something on Nostr, but it's very funny because, like, I still don't know much about all of this. In my mind, Derek is just like a friend on Nostr of mine.
He's a nice guy.
He's such a nice guy and he's very engaging. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's just a friend. But he's like one of the people leading like all of Nostr.
That is not how I would describe it, but sure, why not?
Well, explain it to me.
Like Bitcoin, there are no leaders.
Yeah.
Right? So Nostr is just a protocol. You can create what are called NIPs, similar to BIPs in Bitcoin. And NIPs is kind of funny now that I said it out loud. But they're called NIPs, Nostr Improvement Proposals, I believe. I think it's something else, though.
I hear it more as like nip it in the bud, nip a problem in the bud.
Or nip slip.
Yeah, I know that's where your mind was going.
Unlike anything else that we've worked with in a while, if you're like a developer on the internet, you can pretty much just create whatever you want on the protocol. And then other people decide like, oh, I also want to use that thing that you're creating. And you agree on the data before you build your thing. I forget which apps Derek has built, but he's built a couple.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's a builder. He was one of the people that came in during the jackening.
What's the jackening?
So the jackening is when Jack Dorsey on Twitter told everybody about Nostr. And it was really weird because he was in the process or had just sold Twitter to Elon or he had just stepped down as CEO, I think. It was like he was leaving Twitter one way or another. And he had been promoting this thing called Blue Sky and this whole like decentralized identity concept. He was promoting a bunch of stuff on his way out. And then out of nowhere, he was like, oh yeah, check out this Nostr thing. And everybody was like, what's that? The rest is history, really. But since Jack Dorsey has basically like kind of stepped away from Blue Sky and is kind of going all in on Nostr. So whatever he saw when he posted that on Twitter, he sees more of it today. So Derek is one of the people that came in when Jack tweeted that. So did I.
And so that was what, 2 years ago?
I want to say December 22.
Wow. And in that short time, now there are events happening in New York City.
They've had Nostr events in Costa Rica. They've had Nostr events in Asia. They've had Nostr because it's decentralized. You can have a Nostr event wherever you want.
Well, yeah, I know that. But I meant for somebody who got involved a year and a half ago. Well, was he one of the people running this event or?
I think he was involved with Costa Rica.
Oh, interesting.
And he was technically involved with the event going on in New York. He was speaking and he's Derek, so
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, my friend Derek, I know him.
Your friend Derek, yeah. But yeah, I had seen the event. I mean, you kind of said you should go, but I had seen the event and I just didn't know what our schedule was going to be like.
Yeah, we made it happen, babe.
But when you posted that, I was like, well, I guess I'm going now.
It's decided.
And so then I had to actually like start sitting and thinking about my idea more because I was going to go there and like actually kind of pitch it to the people that are there. They're not really like VCs or anything, but they're other developers. And so
there'll be people that can get it and maybe challenge ideas and expand on the idea.
I go to a couple Bitcoin meetups here in DC and they're not attended by builders. Like there might be one or two people who build stuff, but a lot of them are just like, for example, like I work at the Treasury, but I believe in Bitcoin, right? So it's like
I work at the Treasury, but that's an extreme example. But
no, there's a guy.
Oh, yeah.
There's a guy, right?
Yeah, I get it.
You can only talk about maybe philosophy of Bitcoin or maybe like Lightning sometimes, but a lot of people don't get Lightning. But the Nostr people, like they get Lightning. They all get Lightning.
Yeah, it's undisputed.
Right. They're all Bitcoiners. They all get Lightning.
Point. I didn't even think
about
that.
And Nostr, for lack of a better term, in my opinion, is the application layer of Bitcoin. People aren't tying Nostr and Bitcoin together as tightly as I think they should. It's hard to know how many people are using Nostr. The metrics aren't really easy to measure, and they're easy to game. If someone wanted to game them, you can make a bunch of public key pairs, and then the numbers would look all crazy. So you can't have a metric like Facebook that says we have 1 billion users. A, Nostr doesn't have 1 billion users, and B, like nobody would trust it if you said they did have 1 billion users. But the Nostr guys are really cool because they're building apps that use Bitcoin, but they aren't solely reliant on Bitcoin. I didn't really make that connection until I was there and like I was talking to people and I realized like, oh, I can explain my idea from you and I don't have to lay any groundwork.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain Bitcoin. I don't have to explain Lightning. I don't have to explain Nostr. I don't have to explain anything. I just go, hey, here's what I want to do with Nostr.
And the cool thing about Ian's idea is that it's pretty simple.
I've talked about it enough, like vaguely, where I'm really prepared to talk about it on the show today a little bit.
You are? Oh my God, I didn't even know that. This is so exciting.
Surprise.
Ooh, I just got butterflies, babe.
Well, I have enough of a prototype where I feel like I know where this is going to go. Based on all the feedback that I got in New York, I feel comfortable about talking about it out loud because basically nobody had any bad feedback, which was weird.
So now you're like, hate on my idea, challenge me. Is that the request?
That's not the request. The reason why I'm like more confident to talk about it now is because I've actually thought about it enough. We've kind of gone through a couple iterations here in the basement about what this could be. The thing that pushed me over the edge was, if you haven't seen it, go check out the documentary on BTC Pay Server. The name of it, it's on YouTube. It's called My Trust in You is Broken. And it's a documentary about how the BTC Pay Server was created. It's one of the most widely used Bitcoin payment processing apps. It's open source. Anyone can use it. And I learned at the conference, or the whatever we're calling what I went to in New York, there's, what is it called? Wallet of Satoshi. It's an app you can download, but I think they left the country. They left the United States for reasons. But Wallet of Satoshi was just a skin of BTC Pay Server. So someone just took open source software and built an entire app on top of it. And I didn't know until last week.
I see. You didn't know what BTC server was.
I knew what it was. I didn't know that Wallet of Satoshi was just a skin on top of it. And someone told me that, and I was like, yes, that even more confirms that what I want to build will work because someone has already done that with BTC Pay Server. So I am prepared to talk about it.
Again, just butterflies. How do you feel? Are you excited to unveil your idea?
I don't know if excited is the right word. I'm confident to talk about my idea.
Yeah, elevator pitch, babe. Do you have it ready?
I don't have a real name for this. This might end up being the name, but this is what I'm going with for the moment. The name of the thing that I'm building is called BTC Ad Server, kind of like BTC Pay Server.
Love it.
And it is thank you, Mandana, the open source decentralized ad network. Now you might ask yourself, what does that mean? Well, I have a slide for you. Hold on a second.
There is a pitch deck we've worked on.
So I'm going to give you guys a little background on where this idea came from, because it actually starts from the fact that we have a podcast and how a lot of you actually found us. We're on Fountain. You're probably all listening to us on Fountain, right? And you probably found us on Fountain because you saw a promoted episode on Fountain. The way that works is we buy quote unquote ad space from Fountain. So we give Fountain $50. They take a cut, and the rest of the money that's left over, they buy Bitcoin with it. And as you listen to the promoted episode, it'll stream you the Bitcoin from that pile. That's how those promoted ads work. That's how we can say, like, listen to this episode and you'll earn X amount of money because it's pre-programmed in that you'll earn that. This year, Fountain doubled their cut. So they were taking $10 out of every 50. Now they're taking $20 out of every 50. Plus the price of Bitcoin went up. So we're just getting less for our same $50 per ad. And I started thinking, like, what can we do differently? How can we market this to people differently? Like, how could we reach the same people or encourage people to listen to us without going through Fountain? When I was thinking that through, I realized Fountain has to build a like small ad tech company just to make Fountain work. And you've probably seen emails from them and stuff like that. Like, hey, this week's sats are brought to you by whatever. Like, that's all them just trying to bring in money. And I'm not saying any of this to like shit on Fountain. I'm saying this to say like, this is a fundamental problem that they have, and a problem that almost all like startups have is like, how do we monetize this idea? Well, in like Silicon Valley world, you monetize by raising money and we'll figure it out later, right? Like that's pretty much how every startup in Silicon Valley works, which is why most of them don't succeed. I was talking to the Fountain guys and I was trying to like tease out, I would like to see certain things in the app as a podcaster. And the idea that I kept coming back to was, I want to know how valuable my content is based on how many sats it's earning per minute, right? So if I have a podcast that's an hour long and it earns 60 sats, like that podcast is worth 1 sat per minute. Like, okay, cool. At the same token, if I'm a person using Fountain and there's an ad, well, if Flirting with Bitcoin is offering me 100 Satoshis for 60 minutes and another podcast is offering you 100 sats for a 20-minute episode, I'm probably going to want to listen to the 20-minute episode because it's more worth my time, right? So that was the idea that I kept coming back to. But in order to like make that happen, I either have to convince the Fountain guys to do it, or I got to build my own app to do it, or go convince some other app builder to do it. And it just wasn't going to happen because everyone's doing their own thing. And this is just my idea. Like, who are you? You don't work for me, like whatever, right? But that's like the origin story, this idea of like sats per minute. Well, that is actually how you could measure and value all content. Again, I was coming from the idea of, I want to promote my podcast and I want to offer people a certain amount of sats as like an introductory, like, listen, we'll pay you if you like it, subscribe and keep listening. But I wanted to tell them like, your time is valuable. And here it is, like actually measured out. I will give you 100 sats per minute or 20 sats per minute or whatever the number ends up being to listen to this podcast. So that's like the origin story of BTC ad server. Once I got to that point, then I started thinking about, like, how would I do this if I didn't have my own podcasting app? So the first idea that we came to, that we talked about, it was a company that would advertise in this fashion to everyone on Nostr, right? So you'd come to this website, you'd plug in your Nostr public key, and basically you're saying, I'm going to subscribe to your relay, and every interval you're allowed to send me an ad through my feed. Our
original idea, you opt in to getting advertisements. So right now there's no advertisements on Nostr. I mean, people can post stuff, and if it somehow shows up on your feed, you see it. But the idea is that you sign up onto this relay, and every time there's a new block, you get shown or sent something that says, hey, do you want to look at this advertisement? It'll pay out this much. And they can click it, they can watch it or view it. And after it's done, they can get zapped, or they can get paid in Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the most important part, is that the person that's being advertised to, gets paid.
You get the money, not like some middleman company that is kind of holding you hostage and like unconsensually showing you an ad. This is consensual. This is saying, yeah, sure. When I'm scrolling on social media, I want to see products and services and different content creators who want to advertise things to me. Sure. Like, if I'm in the mood, if I'm not busy, yeah, I'll watch their ad and also make a little money. If I'm busy and I'm just like on the app quickly because I need to respond to someone, like, no, I do not want to see an ad. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And so the cool thing about Nostr, because you connect to different relays, which is different than Twitter, which you just connect to Twitter, you, the user, have the ability to opt in and out of this idea just by simply disconnecting from the server. Right? So that was like the original idea. On top of that, you, the user, get to set your price. So you might say, I'll watch an ad if I'm free and have time, and it's over 100 sats per minute. Me, the advertiser, would say, well, I'm willing to pay 100 sats per minute. And now, boom, you have a marketplace. And that idea of having a marketplace was where I was like, oh, marketplaces are powerful, because once you have a marketplace, you eventually find, if it works, you eventually find the clearing price of whatever it is that you're selling. And in this idea, what's being sold is attention.
Yeah, which I think is really cool because right now our attention is
harvested.
Yes.
It's harvested and sold on our behalf. And then we're told
non-consensually.
Well, then we're told like, well, you get to use this app named Twitter or this app named Google or Gmail for free because we're showing you ads. The problem with that is, what is your attention actually worth?
It's worth much more than we know because these companies make so much money.
Exactly. Your attention is worth what Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all these companies' profit margin. That's what your attention's worth. And so the way that this works today is that fiat, we talk about like on the pod, things getting debased or devalued, right? Like fiat debases your attention. So what's happened is that Google is like a attention pimp. It goes and gets all these people in it, and then it goes to Ford and says, hey, man, I got some people. You want to show them your new ugly car? Well, if you give me a pile of money, I'll show it to them. You won't be able to prove that I showed it to them, but I'll show it to them. And trust me, it's all good. It's all good. So even Ford is getting a rough deal because Ford has to trust the fact that Google is actually showing these ads. And it's crazy. Like on top of that, I don't know if anyone knows this. If you're listening and you know this, like you're in a small minority, but Google sells ads in the most crazy way possible. It's called a Dutch auction. I believe that's the term. And the way that it works is, let's say you're Ford and you want, when anyone types Ford in the Google search bar, you want to be that promoted ad or the top result. So Ford goes to Google and says, hey man, I want to be the number one result when someone types Ford. How much is it going to cost? And Google's like, it's an auction. You bid and, everyone bids and then, whoever wins gets the thing. Oh, so Ford bids, let's say it's Ford, right? So $10 million. And Google comes back and says, sorry, man, you got second place.
Yep.
And Ford goes, okay, how much for first place? Oh, I couldn't tell you. That wouldn't be fair. You just have to bid more money next time. So Ford comes back next time and goes, okay, I'll give you 15. He's like, sorry, you're still second place. Okay, 20? He's like, you win. You got the first place. What Google doesn't tell you is that 15 and $1 would have got you first place.
Or you were always first place.
No, you're definitely second place. They would have lawyers coming after Google if they were doing that. The bigger problem is that Google doesn't have to tell you how far away from winning you are. And so people are overpaying for ads.
I mean, there's so many reasons why I love the idea and why I was so supportive of it. But I think your pivot to first wanting this to be an open source project is really interesting to me. And I see how excited you've become by the idea that you would be contributing this way.
When I watched that documentary, My Trust in You is Broken, it's about like the lead developer or the guy that started. He said a bunch of things that like really hit home with me. And the first one was, I don't want to start a company. I don't want to have a board. I don't want to have investors. I don't want to take down $1 million and then have to return a 20x on $1 million. And I don't have a business plan, but you gave me $1 million and I got to go figure it out. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to write code. And that was the one that I like perked up at. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm feeling that. Because we were in the process of like starting a company. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be like a lot of overhead.
A lot of work.
And then the second one that he said was, because it's an open source project that anyone can download and run however they see fit, I don't know how you're using it. If there's something you wanted to do that it doesn't do, you're more than welcome to add that to it. But then everyone who's using it gets that functionality. And so for this ad server concept, it'll serve like, let's say 4 types of ads: textual, image, audio, and video, right? Well, those will all have to be presented to somebody to be advertised, right? Maybe I don't have to build all of that. Maybe somebody will be incentivized to build the video viewer, the video version, and someone will be incentivized to build the audio version, right? But then everyone who's running the server will also be able to do that. And so once more functionality gets added to the server, more people will be inclined to possibly run the server. But the other part about BTC Pay Server, the documentary, that really caught my attention was there are companies that are built on top of that. And I just said a second ago, like Wallet of Satoshi is built on top of BTC Pay Server. There's other companies that are built on top of it as well. So the point is that like you can run your own server, or you can find a service that is basically running the server for you if you don't want to. And so for me and this ad server concept, I feel like the same thing applies. Either you're going to be a highly technical person like myself who's willing to run your own server, or a company can exist like the company we were kind of starting, before all of this happened that will do it for you. But this open source server needs to exist before that company can exist. So I just have to write the code and maybe start that company. Maybe, I don't know. At the bare minimum, someone can and probably will. I just think this is a good idea because there's a big problem in Nostr right now, which is basically the Nostr clients are not funded, right? Like Damus is not really funded. I mean, I'm sure they're getting some money from Zaps and all kinds of stuff, but Will's basically doing that out of his pocket. Primal, I think, has some money in it. I don't think Amethyst has money in it, right? So like the 3 clients that I use, one of them might be funded. So they, in theory, could spin up their own server. And so Primal, Amethyst, Damus could all be running their own version of this server. And if they're inclined, they can all go out and get some ads to sell, right? They can pitch to different companies to sell through their ad server, but also at the same time, they don't all have to sell all the ads to everyone. They can just sell a fraction and then share the ads amongst each other. And so the ad network is actually bigger than it would be if it was just Twitter, Facebook, and Google all fighting each other. This would be Primal, Damus, and Amethyst working together.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool way to help everyone monetize their projects.
And you can opt out.
Yeah, it's like no matter what, the person that is going on the internet to have an experience is still in control of what they're going to see.
And that was the big part for me was I wanted to make sure that people could opt out because as we know the current experience, you're using an app and then one day there's just ads all over it and you're just like, well, I guess this is my life now.
It's so true. Well, I guess this is my life now. Womp womp.
During COVID, Google, I don't know, because I have a Google phone and so I get YouTube Premium for free. But like my buddy Michael was telling me that the ads on YouTube just got ridiculous. And he was like, yeah, like Google basically doubled the number of ads that they were showing him at least. And there's nothing you can do unless you buy premium from them. Again, the cool thing about this idea is I'm only working on the server that stores and relays and shares all the ads amongst other servers. You can pick and choose which servers you want to share with. You don't have all 3 of those apps, for example, wouldn't have to share with each other. They could just share with 1 or 2 or whatever. But after that, once I have that set up where you could put an ad in and it'll get shared out to whoever you're sharing it with, they can show the ad to one of their users, but they'll get redirected to your ad server where the conversion happens. So they'll watch the ad or whatever on your server. Your server is where the ad actually resides. So you are actually responsible for serving it up. You're responsible for paying the user what you said they were going to pay them. Outside of that server, I don't know what anyone's going to build on top of that idea. I have some ideas. The idea for me that's so crazy is that like I don't know what someone's going to build and I don't have to know what someone's going to build. As long as they're like, yeah, I want to run this ad server and I'm willing to share it with, let's just say there's like a setting in the server that says share it with everybody. So yeah, cool. Like share it with everybody. I don't care where it shows up, but it's still got that pricing mechanism in it. Whether you're on Damus, Amethyst, or Nostr or Damus, Amethyst, or Primal, the user that you're interacting with has set a price.
And I just want to make a note. You're probably thinking, what about bots? Ian has an answer for that.
Good question. The payout is over Lightning. And as we all know, if you're listening to this, you probably do know, Lightning is pretty much like an email address. So our podcast Lightning address is flirtingwithbitcoin@albi.com. Albi doesn't do any KYC. Theoretically, I could programmatically make a bunch of accounts and give them Albi addresses and then drain your wallet of Bitcoin payouts for the ads, right? Or you can just whitelist which domains that you'll pay out to, such as Strike, which does have KYC.
Whitelist meaning this is the exclusive list of address types that we'll pay out to.
Yeah. So for example, you're a bot and you're in Damus, right? And Damus serves you up an ad and you're a bot. So I guess you virtually click, I don't know, but you click the ad and it sends you to the Flirting with Bitcoin ad server, right? Mm-hmm. On the Flirting with Bitcoin ad server, you log in with your public-private key, right? Because this is all Nostr-based, Nostr identity-based. You log in with that key, and the server goes, sorry, we don't pay out to Albi. We pay out to Strike. So if you want to run a server and pay out to domains that don't KYC, that's on you. Cool. But that's a choice. Personally, if I were running a company, I would probably only pay out to KYC addresses. Mm-hmm. There are other ways to go about doing that. I'm guessing that it'll probably be more whitelisting than not. But again, it's just an option. You figure out how you want to handle it.
The cool thing is that whenever we have different things that pop up, obviously we're not going to be able to talk about every detail of the project and the project's evolving every day, is that, we'll just say someone else will solve that problem.
This is probably one of the coolest ideas that I've had in my 20 years of software development. I know a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's Bitcoin and Nostr. All of my ideas that I had before Bitcoin and Nostr, it's like, yeah, that's a good idea, but how is that going to work?
Yeah, because of fiat.
It's because of fiat, right? Like within the fiat world, you need to like get all the users before anything will even work. This idea is like, it's success if there's a bunch of people running servers. I don't have to make any money off of it. I just need the servers to be running and the Nostr ad network to be growing. And on top of that, one of the other big problems in the fiat world is because money can be created out of thin air. You know, there's a reason why very few people compete with Google and why Facebook never let Google index any of their pages in the very early days, is because Google will just buy you. If you come into the ad space in the legacy internet fiat world and you get good enough, Google will buy you. And there is no number you can come up with that they can't acquire to buy you.
But that's the old internet, and this is the new. Hey, it's Mandana. We're in season 3, The Having, and I'm making sure we drop a new episode every week. We are dreaming big for flirting with Bitcoin, and the only thing standing in our way is time and money. Let me be transparent and talk real numbers. Through Value for Value, our listeners directly paid us 100,000 sats in season 1. Season 2, we made 1 million sats. Of course, now we gotta see if we can 10x again and reach 10 million sats this season. Hashtag relationship goals. If we earn 10 million sats from the work we put into this podcast, it'll be the sign that one of us can do this part-time, maybe even full-time. Send us Bitcoin or shop our merch store. It all helps with the goal. You can also give us an old school shout out on social, listen to us on your favorite Podcasting 2.0 app, or make and share clips of the show. Your support in any form is value we appreciate. Go to flirtingwithbitcoin.com/support and let's experience value for value together. So I had asked you to summarize how you feel after going to that Nostr event and talking to everyone about the idea of BTC ad server. And you said that Nostr is the second version of the internet.
Yes.
Elaborate.
It depends on who I'm elaborating for. I'm going to elaborate directly to you. The current internet, it started out like Nostr, a lot of people just building stuff or whatever. The main problem that kind of arose first on the original internet was identity. So what you ended up with is everyone having to build their own database of usernames and passwords. Mm-hmm. And then they get hacked, right? Because you're only as good as your code and your system administrator. That problem has been around since the 80s. Everyone running their own database of usernames and passwords. So with Nostr, that doesn't exist anymore, right? Like your username is your public key, your password is your private key, and you have to protect your password, your private key. But me, the app creator, I don't have to protect everyone's password.
What if I lost my private key?
And you're in tough luck.
Maybe I lost mine. I don't know where mine is.
What are you talking about? If you have an app on your phone, Damus will let you get your key
It'll
out.
let me pull it out. That's the only way. So if something happens to my phone.
Yes, just like if something happens to your hardware wallet, you lose your Bitcoin.
All right, I need to figure out. So do you write your private key somewhere?
No, I have it in multiple apps and a couple of websites. Like I have it.
Okay, websites. All right, that's the way. Okay.
I mean, look, it's a string of characters. However you want to secure that string of characters. Your private key, you could hammer that into steel like a Bitcoin 12 words.
Honestly, that's what I was thinking.
Right. And so I'm like 90% certain that there's like a 12 words conversion for private keys to 12 words in Nostr as well. But don't quote me on that if it doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, someone will make it.
Yep.
And before you know it, we'll probably have signing devices just like we have hardware signing devices. And then before you know it, they'll be the same device. Right. So Internet 1 had an identity problem. Literally. Nostr as Internet 2.
Would you call it an identity crisis? But I'm bumped.
Oh, did I not say that?
No, you said identity problem.
Oh, yeah. It's an identity crisis, right? Because that is the main problem of Internet 1. You end up with this centralization. You end up with, I forget who did it first, but I feel like it was Facebook, if I recall, where Facebook had a widget that other sites could use where you could log into them using your Facebook credentials.
Whoever did it first was a genius.
I believe it was Facebook. And then Google followed shortly after. And the Facebook one was crappy and probably leaked all your credentials and all that fun stuff, but people were using it because it was like, it's one less password that I have to remember. I just log in with my Facebook account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like everyone kind of does that by default, right?
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, Twitter, Google. I don't know if TikTok has login, but like
No.
GitHub has login on websites with GitHub, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this identity problem leads to centralization. People want convenience, so they centralize on a platform that will store their password for them. Number two is the original internet didn't really have money built into it. There's like an HTTP code that kind of implies that payments were expected to be built at some point in the future, but at its base layer, like there's no money on the internet. One.
Mm-hmm.
Again, on Nostr, Bitcoin is basically baked in now. Nostr and Bitcoin are synonymous. It's a common argument that like, why do we even have likes in these apps?
Yeah.
Why do we do this? Like that's just legacy, but it's to keep the people who show up.
Liking. Liking is like a little wave. Hey, it's like you just stopping by.
I agree. You could also give them one sat.
Yeah, I'm on Damus though, so I can't.
That's another problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I need to try some of the other apps or clients.
And this is another problem, is that the centralized app stores have decided that you can't have Zaps, at least on the Apple App Store, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for Google to say the same thing. So identity and money did not exist on Internet 1, and the HTTP protocol doesn't really solve for that. They rely on centralization for both of those. Nostr, which is not HTTP, it's its own protocol, has both of those baked in. And I would argue that because those two things are baked in, Nostr has solved two of the biggest problems that led to centralization on Internet 1 and on this new Internet 2 called Nostr. When someone does something in an app that you don't like, such as serving you up ads, you can just leave. For example, if Damus were to implement the ad server and not let you opt out of the ads, you would just install another app. You would take all your followers and everything would just transfer over to whatever other app. Right. It's like a check. It's the same thing as how Bitcoin is a check on government. Nostr and its design is a check on
private companies,
big tech.
Yeah.
Right? Like big tech is big because it's centralized.
That's really interesting.
So like this ad server that I'm trying to build, I took the train up there, and when I was walking from the train station to the event, I literally walked past the Google building that's in Chelsea. I don't know what they spent on it. I think it was like $2 to $5 billion. It's a massive building. It's also an old world building, but that's a different conversation. And as I was walking past it, I was like, there's nothing Google can do about this if this actually worked. The best Google could do, there's nothing to buy. They couldn't buy an open source project. The best they could do is spin up their own ad server and put all their Google ads into the Nostr ad network. That's all they can do, or not. And if they don't, that's fine. And if they do, then we win. And I think Google's a greedy company. And if you get enough people in Nostr, eventually Google will spin up. They will eventually spin up my open source project. Like that is winning for me.
Let's say someone is listening and they want to support this project. They want to talk to you about this idea, or, there's just something that's come to them and they want to connect with you. What next?
I'm assuming that most of our listeners are not on Nostr. So you can email me at the podcast email, which is flirtingwithbitcoin@gmail.com. And I check that every day. So that's like my second email address.
What if someone is like, Ian, Mandana, this is genius. Where can I donate to support this open source protocol?
There's nothing for that yet. I'm literally in the process of rewriting my prototype from Christmas into the prototype that I took to New York last week.
But you are trying to look into how you could be one of the projects on OpenSats, right?
I mean, that would be cool if OpenSats were to give me like a grant that said like build this. That would be ideal. This is a proof of work world. So until I have something that's even remotely running and has at least 2 people running an ad server that are sharing ads, what are you really supporting? Just a dude with an idea? Like, that's Silicon Valley. Just give a dude a pile of money and then go write a bunch of articles saying he's amazing, and then people invest. Like, that's
literally what I'm doing for you.
Yeah. So you are...
I am fiating this project.
Yes, you have been doing a lot of fiating on this idea, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you didn't watch the documentary.
I didn't.
1.
I need to watch the documentary.
But also, like,
this is all very new. Ian's inspiration. And like truly a week ago, I think this time we were doing the company idea.
No, I mean, I had watched the documentary.
Okay, 10 days ago.
Sure. But Me personally, I just want to write code. And the way the documentary was structured and showing how like the organic growth of that project, it was just very inspiring. I can't say that's definitely going to happen for this, but if that were to happen for this, I don't have to start a company. I can just write code. Hey gang, it's Ian. Let's chat for a second. Bitcoiner or not, I know we're all feeling anxious to save more money lately. But do you want to know why you're feeling that way? It's because you're still thinking in fiat. Seeing the price of everything go up in your local currency, that's what's driving you crazy. That's where all this anxiety is coming from. Meanwhile, the reality is everything is actually getting cheaper on Bitcoin Island. And you might ask yourself, how do I get to Bitcoin Island? Simple. Bitcoin Island is just a state of mind, and you need to train your brain to think in Bitcoin. Your first training exercise is to set a Bitcoin goal using the Satoshi Savings Calculator made by yours truly. And your goal should be to always have more Bitcoin today than you did yesterday. It's literally that simple. This way, the amount of Bitcoin you have only goes up. And once you start to think in Bitcoin, over time, everything around you becomes cheaper. You'll be way more confident about the future. No more anxiety. Look, we don't need to overcomplicate this. You're still early, but you gotta be strategic. And you gotta unlearn everything they taught you about money. So go to flirtingwithbitcoin.com and train your brain to think in Bitcoin with the Satoshi Savings Calculator.
It's really cool to hear you say that like you just want to write code, because when you quit your job, you kept saying, I'm so tired of this. I'm so sick of writing code.
No, that's not why I quit my job.
It's not.
I wasn't writing code at my job.
I
hadn't actually written any code in probably 6 months. Like legit code.
Right.
What I had been doing was writing a bunch of scripts, which you can pay a teenager to do, and I don't want to badmouth it, but I was writing a bunch of scripts to make the product work on a monthly basis because the product itself requires a whole bunch of patching of the data every month.
Whereas now you're writing code to build something that could run on its own.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. What I'm doing now is actually writing code and engineering and designing systems and taking walks with Keon and like thinking things through. Like writing a script, I mean, you might have to think about it, I guess, but like what I was always thinking about when I was writing those scripts was like, is this going to break something? It was a constant state of anxiety and panic that like this script will break something. And the problem is that no one really knew how the system worked. So you couldn't go ask someone like, hey, if I run this script, will it break something? You kind of have to just sit there and think of every crazy scenario that could happen. I don't like that environment. Definitely didn't have to be that way, but decisions were made that made it that way. And so I quit. So
it's time for Satoshi for your thoughts. What do you think our future could look like if you were, what is it, the lead engineer on a open source protocol?
I don't think there's really a title when you're talking about that, but I feel like people like titles.
Well, ignoring the title, like that being your job, you know, like what kind of income would that produce? Is it stable? Like what you were saying?
I don't know.
Yeah. Is there any predictability, or what are you envisioning?
My plan until further notice is to create this open source server and then build a company on top of it.
What was step one?
The server has to exist, and it has to exist in a way that other people will use it. If I were to do it the company way and only the company way, and there wasn't an open source server involved and there wasn't other people like sharing ads and all that fun stuff, then yes, Google could come in and buy it because they could come up with a number that I would accept. Google would say, I'll give you $1 billion, and I'll say, great.
Ian can be bought.
Not that I can be bought, but like $990 million go into Bitcoin, $10 million goes into my boat, and I'm done. Like, they could come up with a number, but to just preempt all of that, you just create something that can't be bought. And once it can't be bought, then you have to like, there's no one coming to like buy you out or cash you out, or, you know, you just don't get to cash in like that. I just think that leads to better outcomes. Like we see that with Bitcoin and Satoshi, right? Like I'm not comparing myself to Satoshi, but there are 1 million coins sitting on the Bitcoin network that if you can figure out how to hack Bitcoin, you're a millionaire or a billionaire or whatever it is, right? But at the same time, if you were to hack the network will lose all its value.
Right.
So no one's going to do it. And if you did do it, the only ways that we know that you could hack the network right now without actually like figuring out Satoshi's keys, you could only pretend to be Satoshi for like maybe 10 blocks, maybe 20 if you were like,
so that's how much time you have to sell.
And it's not about selling. It's that if you were to hack the network in a way where you could do a fraudulent transaction, the network will eventually figure out that it's fraudulent. It recalculates itself to get rid of that fraudulent transaction. So the way that you keep that fraudulent transaction going is you have to keep tricking the network every block. And that costs a lot of energy to do that, which is why no one does it. It's cheaper to just mine Bitcoin than it is to like pretend to be Satoshi. This is that same idea where you could come in and try to like break this and make it not work, or you could just participate. And I think Google, like for me, a winning condition is that Google comes in and participates. Facebook comes in and participates. Twitter comes in and participates.
So it's not about the money. It's about winning.
It's not about the money. It's about making them participate because that's all they can do. And that's what Bitcoin's doing right now. And this is a Bitcoin podcast. I know we're talking about like a Nostr app, but it's got Bitcoin in it. Bitcoin is about the fact that Joe Biden just sent a delegation to El Salvador to congratulate Bukele on his election, that not 2 years ago, they were calling him a dictator and saying that he was like breaking all the norms of democracy. Bitcoin made Joe Biden bend the knee to Bukele. Like that's what Bitcoin does. You can't change it. El Salvador is winning because they bought Bitcoin. You may as well acknowledge it today.
Ian and Mondana are winning. We haven't done anything yet. But yeah, bringing it back to Bitcoin, I think that this is, I said, what you're doing right now is the next step in your Bitcoin journey, but I think this is the next step for Bitcoin.
What?
The same conversations, the same arguments, all of these things that Bitcoiners are dealing with, it's just repetitive, right? Things are playing out. If Bitcoin is new money, we've figured out a lot of what that means. Now, what does that mean for how everything else exists with this money? And that's Nostr.
I was having this conversation with probably myself. We needed Bitcoin to redistribute wealth. And we've done that. Now, maybe people don't like some of the people that got them Bitcoin. That's fine. I don't care about those people. But we needed Bitcoin to redistribute the wealth and establish the fact that you can't just create money out of thin air. And once they did that, we have to work our way backwards now. So we have the money. Now we have to build a new internet. Once we build a new internet, we can start to build new marketplaces. Once we build new marketplaces, we can start to actually
determine the real value of things.
Yes. And once you can determine the real value of things, now using Bitcoin, we can go back and buy everything back from all the people that bought it all up using fake money.
Buy back all the boats.
Buy back all the boats. And, when I was in New York, I was saying this, I've been tying a lot of this into like my genealogy that I'm doing and like learning about my Native American history and stuff like that. Like it sucks that you have to buy it back because some people, it got bought from them with printed money. Other people it was taken from, but we can revert back to what it was. And I truly believe that Bitcoin is going to drive us back towards a world full of city-states and decentralized, basically what the Brits would call tribes of uncivilized people. They weren't uncivilized. They just didn't want to live how you were living. And with Bitcoin, you could become Monaco. You can just have a little bit of land. And if you can figure out how to run your life and manage your people or your family. What if you're just a big family of people that has a bunch of land and you just like, leave me alone? If you got a pile of Bitcoin in 100 years, yeah, you'll be able to buy a sliver of America and say, this is mine now. I'm independent, right? I'm buying Florida from you. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. But we are working backwards from what we've been basically building up to over the last, let's just call it 400 years. Peak ridiculousness was COVID. Now that might turn out to be wrong. There might be more ridiculousness in the future. But as it stands today, for me and my analysis, COVID was peak fiat. They manufactured a global pandemic with unlimited printed money.
It's definitely late stage capitalism, but maybe just not the last stage. Thanks for listening to the show.
Now, let's get you set up on Fountain so you can start earning some money simply by listening to podcasts.
Go to fountain.fm to download the app.
Once your app is set up, search for Flirting with Bitcoin and hit follow.
Listen to our show and episodes from your other favorite podcasts to earn your first Satoshis, which are fractions of a Bitcoin.
And make sure to keep an eye out for our promoted episodes.
You can earn up to 100 Satoshis just for listening.
Pretty cool, huh?
You can use those sats you've earned to send us a boost, like a little payment with a message.
And I swear, we try to respond to everyone.
Every episode, we shout out the top boosters.
To support us or other podcasters with more sats, you can top up your Fountain wallet with a bank card or lightning transfer from apps like Strike or Cash App.
The easiest way to learn is to get started.
Now you're all set up for podcasting 2.0.